Are you wondering how your property did this summer? All right, so Labor Day is over, so now we can talk about summer 2025. How did it go for the Lake Norman vacation rental market? So let me share with you some information that you're going to find really interesting. And if you stay to the end, you're going to find out how it is that we're seeing some of these changes that we're seeing right now that are going to be really insightful for you. So let's first start out by looking at the number of vacation rentals, the number of listings in the Lake Norman area. And I've got this divided up by bedroom count, so 4-bed, 5-bed, 6-bed, and also by the month in the summer, June, July, and August, the three strongest months of the vacation rental market in Lake Norman. You can see for 4-bedroom properties, we're right around 230 or so. For 5 beds, we're about 140, 150. And for 6-bed properties, it's about 60, 64, something like that. Not a big surprise that we have more 4-bedroom properties than 6-bedroom properties, for example. But what is interesting is when you compare the number of listings we've had this summer versus the previous year, you'll see a really big difference here. So if we compare this year, 2025 to 2024, you can see that the number of 4-bedroom listings actually decreased substantially. I mean, 7%, 8%, 2% drop. That's pretty significant. 5-bedroom properties also dropped a bit in terms of the number of listings. But what's really incredible is the growth we've seen with the 6-bedroom properties on Lake Norman. Now, this is a trend we're seeing nationwide. It's not just in our market, but it's really interesting to see how much more investment is being put into these larger properties. And it makes sense because the larger properties are the ones that make the most money. Now let's look a bit at average daily rate. So these are the average daily rates for the different bedroom sizes for the 3 different months we have in the summer. As you can expect, 6-bedroom properties are going to command more per night than a 4-bedroom property will. But again, if we compare to previous year, you'll see that the growth extends across all the different bedroom sizes. So 4 bedrooms you would expect to be higher because there's actually less properties available. So it makes sense that they could charge a little more. But look at the growth in terms of the 6-bedroom properties being the highest growth of average daily rate, even though they had a big increase in the number of listings. So that's really incredible. That says to me that this space, these 6-bedroom and above, are really growing very fast and faster than what the amount of supply there is in the market. If we look at revenue per listing, you can see here that 4 bedrooms versus 5-bedroom or the 6-bedroom. This is the average revenue they made every month. Of course, a 6-bedroom is going to make more than a 4-bedroom. But if we look at last year's comparison, again, really strong numbers across the board, but really especially in the 6-bed and above, which is really a substantial difference. To me, this just says that even though there are more listings available now, the fact that the average revenue per listing increase tells me that the demand, again, is stronger. It's outpacing the supply, which is a great thing if you're a vacation rental owner, investor, and property manager like we are. So how did 2025 do compared to previous years? Let's look at that. So this chart here shows the amount of money that the market brought in for 3-bedroom and above properties for vacation rentals in the summer months, June through August of each of these years. And you can see every single year we're growing substantially. And these are not just small numbers. These are huge increases year over year, which is really, frankly, phenomenal. Very few markets in the country are seeing this kind of growth. And it's something that we're taking advantage of here in Lake Norman. 2 of these years, 22 and 23, were the COVID years, really, where we saw a lot of growth nationwide. But even after that, it continued to grow substantially. So this is really very interesting, and it's something that very few markets can say. If you look at Orlando or Joshua Tree or Pigeon Forge or other really big short-term rental markets across the country, they did not have this kind of an effect. 2024 was a pretty weak year for a lot of them, but we still had 27% growth, which is just phenomenal. So we see this growth in the Lake Norman market, but how is it that this is happening? So I want to support this growth with other data outside of what we got from AirDNA, which is the biggest data source for the vacation rental industry. So recently in Statesville, the newspaper put out an article about the fact that Iredell County had a almost 12% increase in visitor spend in 2024 versus 2023. And when I looked at the data that the state put together, the North Carolina Tourism Economics Office, they had the growth of tourism spend in Iredell County at 12%, Mecklenburg at 9%, Lincoln County at 10%. These are some of the biggest counties for around Lake Norman, where statewide tourism dollars increased about 3%. So the Lake Norman market is vastly outperforming the rest of the state when it comes to the amount of money being spent on tourism. And I thought it'd be interesting, what about other markets in North Carolina? So I took a look at the Outer Banks, for example. There's 4 counties that make up the Outer Banks. And look at the growth they had last year, 1.2%, minus 2.3, minus 0.8, 1.5. That's not very much growth for tourism spending in the Outer Banks versus statewide. Yet Lake Norman is showing such incredible growth in terms of tourism dollars spent, which is really what's driving a lot of the performance that we're seeing for our vacation rentals. So let's go ahead and summarize what we're seeing here. First of all, the Lake Norman market is strong for vacation rentals, very strong. It's the strongest market probably in North Carolina, and it is seeing performance year over year that I think is probably doing better than every market in the country that I've seen. So this is really a great stat and a great something for you to know if you're investing and if you're buying and if you're looking to get into this market for growth. This is a great place to be. The second one is that visitor demand continues to outpace supply. We saw the growth of 6-bedroom properties really growing quite a bit in terms of number of listings, yet still their revenue was increasing year over year, which means that just demand is outpacing the supply, which is phenomenal news if you're an investor or manager like we are. And then third, large properties are growing the fastest. And that's not a surprise. I mean, the money that you can make on a vacation rental is substantially more if you have a large property. So that makes a lot of sense. But it's something that we're seeing in Lake Norman and we're seeing nationwide. So there you have it. Very impressive performance for this market. I'm very excited to be in the Lake Norman market. And if you're a vacation rental owner or investor, you should be very excited too. The way things have been going over the last 5 years has been really nothing short of phenomenal. And I don't see a reason why it's not going to continue in the future, but you never know. But anyway, I thought this would be really interesting for you to know, to see how we're doing in the market. So if you're wondering, my property isn't doing that well, or how's my property versus all this, or any question regarding this, feel free to reach out to me. You can just message me through Facebook here or any other way you want. So thank you, and I'll see you soon.